that the vaccinations that we get from childhood till around 3 years of age, there was a decline in that because it was mainly attributed to maybe breakdown in the supply chain. There was also, since there was restricted or limited movement, parents could not take their children to the hospital to go and get the routine vaccination. That was seen clearly. There was a study that I was involved in the early 2021, yes, 2021, just immediately after COVID, whereby we were trying to identify the opportunities and gaps in the supply chain for, sorry about that, in the supply chain for routine vaccinations. And it was noted that some of the factors that really affected it were things like vaccine wastage, supply chain distribution blocks. There was maybe breakages in the cold storage. So those are areas that maybe we as youth could really look into to see how we can better improve the performance of that. Currently, what's new? We have the development of combination vaccines, the MMR vaccine that caters to measles, mumps, and rubella. We also have rotavirus vaccine. Rotavirus was a very common infection that was and still is part of the diseases that cause high mortality among infants. So with the invention of this new rotavirus vaccine, we find that more and more children are becoming immune to the virus, and it reduces the rates of mortality. We also have the yellow vaccine. I believe this one you've come across it several times, especially if you do the international travels, the COVID vaccine, and the most recent one is the malaria vaccine that I believe is yet to be introduced in the market, but it will come in handy because we know in Kenya we have areas that are endemic, if I can use that word, yes, endemic to malaria. That is the Western region. So that vaccine will come in really handy. Next slide, please. The role of the youth in driving vaccine uptake. We are tasked with the action of doing advocacy. This is both for medics and non-medics. I remember, I for one am a medic. We do advocate for advocacy of vaccines, especially in communities that either due to religious or social practices don't want to do vaccination. We try and encourage them by showing them case and point scenarios whereby a child was either didn't get vaccinated, got a disease, what we call the preventable diseases, and the repercussions of that, and a child who was vaccinated and how they have grown to become healthy individuals and adults. For non-medics, I remember, especially this during COVID. Yes, during COVID, I remember there was I was still in school. There was an artist, yes, an artist who made like these walls, the community walls, if I can call them that. He made a drawing advocating for people to take up COVID-19 vaccination. So you see, the part for advocacy is not only limited to us medics, it can also include non-medics in the community. Also, there's something called herd immunity, whereby maybe from my previous slide, you've seen that as part of the SDG are the Sustainable Development Goals. WHO advocates for about 70% immunization. What happens to the 30%? The 30% will acquire immunization by the fact that the larger percentage, that is the 70%, have already been vaccinated. So as an advocate as a youth in the space, in the vaccine and immunization space, by me being vaccinated, it makes us reach the 70% target mark easier, therefore creating a herd immunity in my community. We can also be involved in the research aspect of things. That is, if you really want to venture into that, it's research is always a lucrative business. So, but it's also capital intensive. However, if you really are passionate about research, you can venture into that because there are more new diseases which requires newer vaccines. With that, I think that's the end of my presentation. Thank you. Open to any questions, comments, concerns. Yes.
Thank you, Lisa, for that amazing presentation. Any of us who has questions for Lisa, please feel free to raise your hand or type it in the chat box so that Lisa can be able to address that.